off in the interest of time. So everyone, welcome to the Lunenburg Conservation Commission meeting of Wednesday, March 19th. In accordance with the requirements of the open meetings law, please be advised that this meeting is being audio and video recorded. The agenda lists all of the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and those that are reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. Please address all comments to the chair. This meeting of the Conservation Commission will be held by Zoom at the link provided on the notice. And for anybody who has dialed in and may want to join us on Zoom, the meeting ID is 875-2621-4314. And of course, I encourage everyone to go download the agenda and click on the Zoom link there.
Windows up.
So I will start with a roll call vote. Jenny Putherer.
Present.
Rich Bursch is not present. Jeff Viviano is not present. Mike LaRouche.
Present.
Chris St. Germain.
Present.
Pete Stella.
Present.
Thank you. Do we have any announcements by members of the commission? And I am seeing no hands raised. So we now have time for public comment. With public comment, comments are to be limited to 3 minutes and on a subject matter specific to the direct jurisdiction of the commission. Comments about current agenda items are to be made during the comment period of the specific agenda item. Please address all comments to the chair and introduce yourself by stating your name and your address. For those that are not, or maybe even lesser familiar with Zoom, there's a reaction or react icon along the periphery of your window. It may be at the top or at the bottom, depending on whether you're on a tablet or phone or a laptop. And so do raise your hand if you have the ability of doing so, but also do know that I will call on people during the appropriate time as well. And if you can't find the react icon, you can wave at me or just make a sound and I'll acknowledge you and then call on you at the appropriate time. So public comment, and I am seeing no hands raised. And Sophia, am I understanding correctly that we do not have any meeting minutes to approve?
That's correct.
Do you happen to know if we might start seeing some at some point in the near future?
Hopefully once we get more on track with getting an assistant, that might be where we start seeing some minutes be completed. We also have Logan, who's been kind of getting us a little bit more on track, training him. So he should be helping within the next couple of weeks if they don't have anybody hired by then.
Okay, thank you for that update. Do we have anyone in the past 48 hours that's asked for a continuance?
Yes, 390 Howard Street.
Okay. And did they ask for a continuance to a specific date, or is it understood just to the next meeting?
They just indicated that the next meeting should work.
Okay, that's April 2nd. All right, thank you for that. So we will move into new public hearings. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended, and the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands Protection and Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing on a notice of intent by Ryan Vickers for the removal and replacement of a collapsed drainage pipe through the side yard of a single-family residential property within the 100, the 50, and the 30-foot no-touch zone of Hickory Hills Lake located at 32 Hemlock Drive. I thought we had already heard this one,
You
Sophia.
did.
Okay, has it changed, Greg?
I'll explain.
Okay, well, Greg, I take it you're the
I am.
representative, so introduce
Yes.
yourself.
Greg Roy with Dillison Roy. I'm representing the applicant this evening at 32 Hemlock Drive. And you did indeed hear this hearing back in January.
Mhm.
So if I could share my screen, Madam Chair, would that be acceptable?
Yeah, let me just go change those settings to enable that feature. Okay.
Okay. So we presented this project, I think it's your second meeting in January, the last meeting in January. And what ended up happening, and I'll summarize the project again since it's been 2 months, but what ended up happening, the commission asked us to make one minor change to the plan and continued the matter to the first meeting in February. We revised the plan on February 3rd, issued a cover letter, and again, I'll explain this in a minute, what we did, just to remind everybody, but it came to our attention that we had never notified the abutters. So the meeting that we had in January was invalid. So we re-advertised the public hearing and notified abutters. And here we are tonight. So
that
I
explains it.
apologize. I apologize. It was a internal issue on with my team. So I apologize to the commission for that. So this project is essentially a drainage improvement project. 32 Hemlock Drive. Hemlock Drive is on the bottom of the page. The house sits below the roadway by a pretty significant margin. And the area in front of the house, right in this location here, collects quite a bit of water. He's having some flooding issues. Water is running into the house in a few spots. So the client hired us to solve that problem. To do that, we're actually going to be regrading this area, which is primarily outside of the buffer zone. But one of the major issues is that there's an existing pipe that runs right through here that receives runoff actually from the street, from the catch basins in the street. That is completely collapsed. I think you probably remember, I think several of you may have been on site. You can vouch for the fact that you can see the pipe down at the lake that's really several of the pieces have fallen off, and it's in disrepair. So we're proposing to relay that pipe with a modern corrugated plastic pipe in the same location. The only change that your commission asked last time was that we move the pipe end further back from the lake to provide an area, a little bit more area of settling there. So we have done that. We moved this pipe about 7 or 8 feet back from the lake, increased the size of that riprap. So it just provides a little bit more settling velocity. So it represents an improvement over existing condition. And that's really it. That's all that was the only change requested. And again, I apologize for the snafu on the part of the abutter notification, but happy to take any questions.
I don't have any questions. Do we have any questions from members of the commission? And I'm seeing none. Do we have any questions from members of the public? And I'm seeing none. Do we continue it, Greg, just based on that additional note about the riprap?
You did, and it actually was a good thing that you did, because it was it turned out to be an invalid hearing. So
Okay,
it was a good thing that you did, because we were able to catch it might have, honestly, we might not have caught it. And I like following process, so it's it wasn't like we were going to be constructing the project in the middle of January and February this year anyway, so it really didn't cause too much of an issue from a timing standpoint. But yes, that you did continue it for that plan revision.
okay. And it does appear that we have the DEP file number. Were there any comments by the DEP?
I don't think that there were. Let me well, there might have been, actually. Hold on, let me see. I'm sorry, I should have had that queued up.
Well, this one's a little bit outside of the standard, as you say.
It'll take me just a minute here to navigate to the site. I apologize for this, folks. Usually we would give you a letter that addressed them, and we didn't do that this time, so I'm assuming there wasn't any, but I will check.
The question was, will this pipe collect and discharge untreated road runoff?
Yeah,
And typically
right.
work on a point source discharge requires a category 2G fee.
Yeah,
Commission may
that's right.
want to
Yeah.
require additional fee.
I remember talking about that now, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's our contention that, this is not a new point source discharge. We're repairing a pipe that already exists.
Yeah.
So we really do not see that it rises to that level of filing fee.
Fair enough. I don't have any concerns about that. But I'm not seeing any questions, and no one's raised their hand. I don't see any questions from members of the commission. So I think I'm looking for a motion here.
I would be motioning to approve.
Thank you, Jenny.
Second?
I heard Mike's voice in that second. Roll call vote. Jenny,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Pete,
Aye.
and I for myself.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, as amended in the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands Protection and Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing on a request for determination of applicability by Bonnie Albright for the addition of a temporary modular removable rolling dock on Whalum Lake located at 76 Laurel Lane. And do we have Bonnie Albright or her representative here tonight?
Hi, I'm Bonnie Albright. I live permanently at 307 Main Street in Concord, and I've recently purchased 76 Laurel Lane as a second home. I'm looking to put in a temporary modular sectional dock that I can roll in. The previous owners had a dock, but they were old and they passed on. I think they sold it at some point, is what I heard from the neighbor. So I'm seeking approval for that metal dock.
Do we have specs on what type of dock you're looking to put in?
I didn't really see the opportunity to add that in, but it is a Flow brand. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those Flow brand. It's from Precision Motorsports in Gardner. Precision Water Sports in Gardner.
I'm just looking them up. I'm not familiar with them.
FLOE.
Okay.
I submitted a diagram of kind of from flow. They allowed me to do like mock it up, so I submitted that.
Do you have the ability of sharing that, Bonnie, or do you need, like
Yeah.
our administrator to share?
It's not so big, but maybe I can make it bigger. Okay, is that the whole screen?
Okay, yeah. And will it come, in the wintertime, will it come out in one piece, or do you have to disassemble it, to
pieces.
get it
It's two pieces that
two
connect.
pieces?
Yeah.
And where will it go on your property?
So if over, oh, hold on, I'm gonna share a different portion of my screen. So this is the Whalum Lake diagram, and that's where my property is here. And then I'm gonna switch it again. I didn't see how to share the screen, so I'm just doing one at a time.
Okay,
This next one's a little closer up. So here's the house, and here's the dock portion.
now if I recall properly from, being out at the, site visit, there's, some vegetation over there.
There is up on the hill.
And so what elevation would that come in? I mean, how would you access it, right? Would you come into to the shore area and then walk
Yes.
over on the shorefront?
Yeah, what I'm trying to do is split the balance between ease of access to the dock and ease of access to the water for children swimming. So
Mhm.
I'm not exactly sure where the best spot is, especially with it being iced up since I've been doing this application. But I'd be happy to take suggestions based on your prior experience, or let me know what you recommend.
One of the things we usually, are looking for with these types of applications is a clear understanding of access, because, the 30-foot buffer zone is a no-touch zone.
Okay.
And we certainly understand that people who, own, lakefront property and who have, paid and continue to pay through taxes, the uplift for waterfront property want to access the water, but that buffer zone does need to be maintained, right? And so we would be looking for, and I, as one vote on the commission, would be looking for some way of, encouraging, foot traffic, either, not to only be in the place where the 30-foot buffer zone has already been, kind of, infiltrated, right? Or to somehow, like through a footpath or something, encourage people to stay only within a confined space to access that dock. In when I was out there, this past weekend, it looked like the area where you have it placed right now, there was, both trees and some understory, which I would prefer to, remain intact, right? And for us to encourage foot traffic to go around those areas to preserve that section of the 30-foot buffer zone.
Okay, what if it's what if it's in the disturbed area, the grassy area, that's clear of the trees and brush?
I wouldn't have a concern about that at all, myself. Then
I
I'll
think
let the rest of the commission speak, for themselves. Maybe if you had it at the edge, right? The compromise is to have it at the edge of that, grassy area so that you can access the dock and then maybe take advantage of your waterfront. Like if you were going to have a boat or kayaks or whatnot, put them on the far side so they're not in the kind of beach area. Maybe that might be a good compromise.
What if I moved it right there, that is what I feel like we're saying.
Mhm.
In not touching the existing vegetation and brush.
That would be what I would be looking for is one
Mhm.
vote on the commission. I didn't have any other concerns, aside from that, myself. Do we have questions or comments from other members of the commission? Hi, Jenny.
So I just wanted to say that I agree with Mary, if it were in that location that we were just looking at, where it's in the already disturbed area, I think that would be a really good place for it.
Okay.
Mike?
Yes, Madam Chair, I too am in favor of any action that protects any vegetation areas that are undisturbed versus one that has been disturbed. And it sounds like that's what you're recommending. And I as well as Jenny. So I concur with both of your opinions on this one.
Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other questions or comments from members of the commission? Sophie, did you have any comments that you wanted to add?
No, I didn't have anything for this one.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from members of the public? And I'm seeing none. Okay, so given kind of the relative simplicity of this, and then the diagrams that have been submitted are um, relatively non-specific as well. I actually think that a lot of times, Ms. Albright, we ask people to go back and annotate, but we don't really have a real specific drawing submittal anyway with exact placement. I would ask the commission to consider just detailing where in text where the expectation is that the dock will go, and considering the technical vernacular here is providing a negative determination, which is actually permission to proceed in this case. Do I have a motion from the commission, or do I have a dissenting opinion there? Happy for either.
I would motion for a negative determination with the stipulation that we use the area that's already disturbed as the egress route for the taking the docks out.
Thank you, Chris.
So
I'll
moved.
second that.
And I got Mike's voice first again there too for the second. Roll call vote. Jenny,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Pete,
Aye.
and I for myself. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you very much.
Moving along. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended in the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands Protection and Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing on a notice of intent by Daniel Sheehan of Haley Ward Construction for the construction of a two-family dwelling and rain garden within the 100-foot buffer zone of a bordering vegetated wetland located at 221 Electric Ave. Do we have Haley Ward or Daniel Sheehan here tonight?
Yep, present. So this is going to be very similar to what we were here with at the last meeting with 213. So I'm just going to share my screen here. I'm going to show a nice little presentation plan. You'll see both lots shown on here. Great. So everyone can see this, right?
Yes.
Perfect. So similar to what we did last time, I just got everything kind of outlined here in green of what is expected to be grass after construction. What's highlighting in orange here is that 30-foot no disturb zone. And what I actually shown here as well with these little circles, this is essentially stone. We did 2x2 boulders. I was kind of just demarcating that area because there was some encroachment on that. What's shown in gray is going to be paved, and then this olive color is the house itself. So I'm actually going to go to a bit more of a busy plan here to kind of show everything. Right, just make sure we get the right one on here as well. Right, so this is a little bit more busy of what's going on here in this neck of the woods. You can see with the rain garden we have down here, this is actually a relatively low point in the driveway. Everything's going to be kind of pushed into the rain garden and then kind of attenuated and everything of that nature for water quality as well. We also have a 2-foot stone diaphragm in here. This one does not have any clay dams unlike the other ones, just because topography wise, everything does kind of naturally want to flow there. So it wasn't necessarily as needed. And that's really it. I mean, I'd be more than happy to answer other questions, concerns, or anything of that nature.
Could you zoom out on this a little bit?
Yeah. Better, worse?
Yeah, no, that works for me.
Right.
Just switching from my small screen to my big screen.
Right. In full transparency as well, like we were doing with 213, this also went to planning board for the stormwater permit application as well for all 5 lots.
Okay. Hi, Sophia.
Just going off of my notes, I have needs to provide updated limit of work and adding erosion controls around the deck area. And also need to provide vegetation narrative. Is that pertaining to this lot, the 221?
If I may through you, Chair, that's actually for 213,
Okay.
but these two kind of go hand in hand, so I understand that.
Sophie, one of the things that I noticed when I was out there this weekend is, you know, in the ravine area of 221, there seems to be a stream bed and it seemed to be flowing pretty steadily. And it seemed to appear on the Mass Mapper state resource guide. But I don't see riverfront designated on this plan. What's your takeaway there?
So I do believe it's just an intermittent stream area that you
Mhm.
may be seeing. But the other thing that I noticed when I was on the site visit is one of the flags. Let's see, what series is that? It's too small for me to read the series. The series on the right hand side, or the eastern. Yep, 200
200.
series. They were missing from the entirety of the site. I couldn't find a single one of them. I could find the pink parcel lot flags, but I could not find the 200 series flags at all. Something else that I noticed is some of the 100 flags, possibly 104, 103, maybe 105 included. Some of them were flagged on the eastern side of the stream, and some were flagged on the western side of the stream, closer towards the 50-foot and 100-foot zones. So I'm just curious as to why those were flagged differently.
Fair question, Daniel.
Yeah, I honestly am not sure, quite frankly. I know these usually just get survey located after they've been placed and delineated. If there's a question with the delineation, I have to go check with like the environmental specialist that we would have, or I guess whatever you guys would think. I don't know if an ORAD would be the correct option here, but more than open for either of the two. I myself am more of the civil side, so I really wouldn't know how to proceed on this one.
It's interesting now that you bring it up, Sophia. One of the things that I noticed, we did, Pete and I walked out past the wood deck, and so saw the flags, references 9, 10, and 11. But the vegetation, and sapling growth got really thick down towards what's shown on the drawing is 12, 13, 14, and 15. So we didn't walk down in that area. But when we were there, what's marked as 9 and 10 and 11 and 16, there was actually a small stream flowing there, which, so with the way this is shown, there's a depression there at 13, 14, which is interesting because it sort of implies like some sort of wetland, since it's not actually shown and designated as flowing into the tributary that's designated by 103 and 203, et cetera.
Yeah, I also noticed that that area that you mentioned was in fact moving.
Mm-hmm.
I think at the time when I was out there, it was kind of unclear as to whether it was connecting directly across towards the east, connecting to wetland flags 101, 102, or 104. Overall, I'm hesitant about the way that the resource areas are flagged.
As am I.
It's just based off of what I have seen and what the commission is coming back with observations.
Okay. Thank you, Sophie. Oh, and Daniel, so the parking areas are proposed to be paved, is that right?
Yes.
That driveway accesses will be paved?
Yep, that's correct.
Approximately how long is the driveway on 221, just from the road to where, the turnaround area is,
Yeah,
back
great
out area
question.
is? Just so I can kind of get in my mind kind of the scale relative to where I walked this weekend.
I'd say it's probably about 200 feet or so, roughly.
Okay, and that's for 222 or
That's
215?
for 221,
Okay,
this section here.
all right.
For reference too, might help with the site walk, that building that was on site there, that's right in this neck
Okay,
of the woods here.
yeah, that's very helpful. Okay, what's the so 221, it looks like that house is kind of built right at that existing significant grade change. Is that a correct? I mean, where's
Yes.
the grade change currently? There's like a really steep shoulder there.
Yep, it's kind of right in where this rain garden is. You can kind of see it. I'm gonna zoom in here pretty tight here, so you can kind of see it. So here's the 522, 520, 518, 516, 514. So right in here is that real significant grade change. It kind of slopes a little bit here, a little bit more gentle, but right in this neck of the woods, it drops off pretty significantly.
Okay. And so if I understand the new grades properly, you're gonna proposing to kind of extend that level area out and kind of soften the roll off, so to speak, into that ravine?
Yep, that's correct. Especially with the ledge material too, it kind of made sense to try to fill in that area just a little bit, just to actually get some sort of attenuation with that rain garden without encroaching on that ledge. I'll zoom back out here too if you guys want to take a bigger look at this grand scheme.
And how deep is the rain garden going to be?
I believe it's going to be a couple feet. We should just double check here. This one, 523, 524. So it's actually only going to be a foot deep.
And what is the subsoil kind of consisted of? Because there's a lot of ledge, and certainly it's visible, upland from here, up gradient from here, right? But
Yep.
In this area, as you walk in, it looks like there's some type of soil coverage, right? There's a little bit of vegetation, but it's not clear how thick that actually is. So if you dig out that rain garden, is it just going to be rock, or what's it
Great
going to
questions.
be?
It kind of varied throughout the site. We did do soil testing in all these locations. I'll zoom out just to kind of give a brief overview of the entire lay of the land. So we did one location here, one here, here, here as well. So it kind of really did vary. So there was really two ravines that kind of showed some promise, if you will, for, I guess, just soil consistency. Back here, this is kind of a low point just off of 213. And it did have, you could see like a topsoil that was relatively thin, probably about like 6 to 8 inches. And then you had your no weathering, so you went straight into your parent material. And that, if I'm not mistaken, was more of like a sandy loam material. And then I think it was, actually, I think I wrote it down on here, which might be very helpful.
I guess the
Yeah.
point I was getting to is, do we really expect infiltration from those rain gardens? I mean,
No.
or is it just going to go right down to that that rock and then just run over the surface of the rock and cause a problem?
No, astute question. We didn't design this thing to have any infiltration just for that very reason. We actually are having under drains in each of these rain gardens just to try to make sure we have storage capacity at the end of the day. So it was really more for treatment and not so much for infiltration. Where we could kind of get it, we try to at least have that, especially for this one here with that steep slope. Like I had said, we try to at least build it up on top of the slope, so you're not really having any, I guess, ledge material in the proximity, if you will. But they are going to be lined and have the under drains in them.
Where do the under drains feed out to? And are the under drains shown on here?
Yes, very busy plan set, so I apologize for that. But so here's the under drain here, kind of daylights out for this rain garden. This one here, similarly, daylights out. So everything's kind of headed in that direction, kind of towards the wetlands where things kind of want to naturally head out towards. I'll go up to 213 as well. Let's see here. Oh, this one is 213. And then similarly for some of the other areas as well. I know it's not really we're here for today, but just kind of giving a good general sense. All these under drains are in general heading towards Electric Ave. There is kind of a natural, I don't want to say swale, but just gutter line, if you will, on the side that kind of all wants to kind of dump into this 100 series area. So try to utilize that while not promoting direct discharge, if you will. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then with regard to stormwater management, DEP had a lot of questions for you. Have you addressed any of them at this point?
Yeah, so these are all very similar to what we saw in 213 as well. A lot of this stuff was more of just show your work. And I went through the exercise last time with 213, kind of outlining how we went through it. I'd be more than happy to go through that again. But I think it was just a slight oversight on some of the other further documents you could see where we actually showed where we got those volumes from. The only one I think that is, I will say, a bit more warranted is the 90% TSS removal. But through Mass DEP, they do say that rain garden does get that pre-treatment so long as you have, I think it was like 3 to 8 inches of gravel and then 3 to 5 feet of sod. We're doing the 2-foot filter strip as well as the 5-foot separation between the top of berm before you start getting into the rain garden. So I would see it that we reach that pre-treatment for that 90% TSS removal credit.
Okay, so that's a long explanation for, have you provided that documentation to DEP yet? For
We
this
didn't,
site,
go ahead, sorry.
for this site?
We provided everything, same thing we submitted to you guys, the same thing we submitted to them. And it is in there. So they do have that documentation, yes.
Okay. And do we have an O&M plan?
Not a specific O&M plan, but we do have like a documentation, if you will, that's also in the stormwater management report that was submitted as well.
Okay, now that I heard as, no, we don't have an O&M plan.
Maybe I'm speaking incorrectly. When I think of a plan, I think of a plan sheet. But we do have like an operation and maintenance plan as like documents. So that is what was
Mhm.
provided. So yes, you do have an O&M plan. Sorry, misspoke.
Okay,
there.
okay. And Sophia, do we have that uploaded in OpenGov?
Yep. I'm looking at it now. The only thing is it's labeled and titled 213. But it is here.
Okay, so that would need to be fixed so that it's clear that it applies.
Okay.
Daniel, we've just had a number of issues around town with storm water, and 10 years into the future it becomes really murky about what was implied where. So it's important to have a clean documentation trail.
Absolutely makes sense.
Okay. So my last comment. I'm actually really glad that this area is getting developed. It's been sitting dormant for a long time, right? So I'm glad for that. And then, that platform in the back, our observation this weekend was that it actually looked like at some point in time, maybe it was a structure. There's a lot of debris around it that, you would normally associate with household debris, like, old love seat, an old recliner, kids trampoline, a lot of stuff that you would normally associate with a structure. But, I didn't see any evidence that like it had plumbing or anything like that. So maybe it had been somebody's shack, right? That eventually, got burnt down or something. But it'll be nice to have that all cleaned up, particularly moved out of the area, the 30-foot no touch zone. The place for me that does have concern is the wetland designation and delineation, because, this weekend when I was out there, as happens in the spring, it was flowing pretty vigorously. And, just based on the way the around that platform, it is kind of designated, I anticipated this might have some type of riverfront designation on it. So the delineation does bother me. But I'm thinking about that. So are there other questions or comments from members of the commission? Oh, and I'm not seeing any. Nobody's raising their hand. Everybody's shy tonight. Okay, well, I'll just go call on everybody, and you'll have to talk. Jenny?
I don't have anything really to add on this one. I didn't get to do the walk back, and as far as the plans go, I think you covered it really well, and Sophie did too, as far as the delineation goes.
You okay, Mike?
Yes, I concur. I think you covered everything, Madam Chair, that was of any questionable significance. I thank you for your thoroughness.
Thank you, Mike. Chris?
Yeah, this was kind of an education for me, having you go through the different topics, Mary, so that was good. Thank you. I don't have anything else to add.
Okay, Pete?
Oh, I'm just still wondering who built that big deck out in the woods. It was a lot of plywood.
A lot of work.
No questions.
Okay. Okay, and two members of the commission is actually Daniel from on your drawing from like flag 109, could you map out 100 feet directly to the left for us?
In
Where
here.
would that be? Is that
This
where
would
that
be-
would be?
Yep, this will be the 100-foot buffer.
Okay,
black
and
line.
can you scroll down so we see where that is relative to the house?
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, so my concern in this is that it's very important for us to be clear about whether this is protected riverfront or not protected riverfront, and whether that proposed structure is in a riparian zone. So with that, I would actually recommend that we get a third party peer review on this. And I'm only one vote. So how do my peer commissioners feel about that? Jenny, what are your
I would-
thoughts?
I would agree with that.
Mike? Mike, you're on mute.
Yeah, sounds like a
Yeah.
reasonable request. And it
Okay.
would provide some more clarity.
Okay, Chris?
First, I have a question. Is there a question of if it's a intermittent stream or not? Is that a question on the table as well? Has that been determined?
It's not been determined as far as I know.
Will the third party identify that as well?
That's what I would want them to do.
Okay, so I agree.
And again, in my mind, right, like if that is actually protected riverfront, and then it kind of in my mind, then the square footage of the disturbance in 221 Electric Ave has to actually be calculated.
Yep.
Right, and it has to be within the performance standards for riverfront. Pete, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would just, I think I gotta go along with your more experienced idea that someone should, third party should take a look at that to make sure that that's not gonna later on come back.
And I would be happy, for me personally, would be happy for that to be just a review of whether riverfront applies or not. I don't have any question at all about the remainder of the delineation. I think it's consistent with what I observed out there. And I do think the any missing flags need to be placed. And I think special attention to 102 to 104, as Sophie observed, those maybe weren't consistent with where she saw the wetland. So Daniel, any concerns there?
Just for me, is just going to make sure, I want to make sure I have my marching orders clear just for conciseness, I guess. So when it comes to replacing those flags, how would you guys like to do it? Would you want us to do like a, for lack of a better term, like a stakeout of where they should be and rehang them? Or should it be redelineated by like a wetland specialist?
So I think what Sophie had recommended is that you just ensure that they're hung in the right place, survey located. With regard to location, I think we would like to hire, at your cost, a third party to come out and review that for Riverfront, and then maybe also review flags 102 through 104.
Understood. Thank you.
So Sophie, can you, I guess we're going to have to vote on this before I ask you to take any action. So with regard to peer review on applicability of Riverfront, and then the placement of flags 102 through 104, do I have a motion? Do I have a motion to ask for that?
So moved.
Second,
Do I have a second? Okay, thank you, Mike and Jenny. Roll call vote. Jenny,
aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Pete,
Aye.
and I for myself. So Sophie, can you get those quotes, scope of work written up and requests for quotes out?
So would that mean, just to make things clear on my end, in the past, I have a list of
Mhm.
people to reach out to, just go with that and
I
follow
think that's
that same
sufficient.
procedure?
Yes.
Okay. And is there a time frame for that process?
What did we use last time? I know we did this for 255 Sunny Hill Road. And it seems like we had request for quote, and we did have a requested turnaround time frame. It seems to me like it was 2 weeks, but I don't 100% recall. You can
Mhm.
probably go back and refer to those requests for quote, and I think follow the same.
Okay.
And if I may, Madam Chair, through you, just full disclosure, just full transparency. While we wouldn't want this to wait too long, this one is not a high priority for 221. So I understand that review process and all that stuff could take some time. So no major issues on that front by any means. I know the contractor is eager to get through the first 3 lots, 1, 2, and 3. But
Okay. Yeah, good to know. It's nice to know, Daniel, so that we have the right kind of context. We don't want to put any work off, but sometimes we do get really jammed up in the office, so it is nice to have that. Thank you.
Yep.
And then we would also, because we are going to have to continue this, we would also like for you to get the address correctly annotated on the O&M plan that's uploaded in OpenGov.
correct. Yep.
Anything else, members of the commission, that we would be looking for Daniel to undertake? Okay, I'm not seeing anything, Daniel. And just to the commission, right, as we go through this process, you all have the right to bring up things as you see them, but it's most expedient if we can try to give the applicant and their representative, a full list, to-do list, right? So that they can go off and get it complete and then have the best chance of coming back to us and getting a determination, instead of, finding a little bit this time and a little bit next time. And overall, I think our commission does a pretty good job of doing that. But I just like to keep saying it in my outside voice and setting that expectation. Okay, so with this, we're going to be dependent on the peer review and getting feedback on the peer review, but I imagine we want to keep the pressure up on trying to get that progressed. So should we look for a continuation to April 2nd, I think maybe is the next date? Does that make sense to you, Daniel?
Yep, that makes sense to me.
Okay. So I'm looking for a motion to continue to April 2nd.
So moved.
Thank you, Mike.
Second,
Thank you, Jenny. Roll call vote. Pete,
Yeah, aye.
Jenny,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
and I for myself. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you. I was hanging on for 213, but thank you for your time today.
Okay, excellent. All right, moving along. Okay, Howard Street's the next one. That's been continued to April 2nd, on request from the applicant. Okay, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended in the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands Protection Municipal Bylaws, public hearing on a notice of intent by the Lunenburg Conservation Commission for the construction of a parking area to provide trailhead parking and proposed gravel driveway, which involves the crossing of a bordering vegetated wetland and the construction of a wetland replication area located at Table Rock Conservation Land at 994 Northfield Road. And we are here tonight, and our representative is here tonight. Greg, any updates?
I do. Thank you, Greg Roy with Dilson Roy. I'm representing the commission this evening. Thank you again for your time. So if I could share my screen again.
Yes, please.
I think I can go through this. So by way of just status update here, can everybody see the screen okay?
Yes.
Okay. So we opened this hearing, I think 2 hearings ago. We received DEP comments relative to some stormwater concerns and the like. We did address those actually in advance of the last meeting, so I'm not going to talk about those. I think we kind of got ourselves through that. And the commission had a couple of questions. Well, actually, the commission had a request, and the golf course had a request. So I'm gonna go through those 2 changes here in a minute, but just also to update you, the planning board is also in progress. So we also filed jointly with the notice of intent. We filed a site plan approval for the parking area. We did open that hearing. They continued it because it was in advance of when we had addressed the DEP comments. Relative to stormwater, so we needed to do some plan changes. And so we asked, the planning board did not have any significant concerns, but we did ask them to continue the meeting so that we could have one plan set that they're approving. That both of you, your commission and their board would ultimately be approving. So that hearing is still open. I believe we're on again Monday.
Next week. Yeah, Monday.
Yeah, next week, Monday. So the two things that the commission asked us to do, or we agreed to do, I guess, was item 1 was relative to the replication area. There was a comment that your regulations required 2-to-1 replication, or 2-to-1 replication ratio, which means that if we fill for every foot of wetland that is filled, that we would need to create 2 feet of replication area. We agreed to do that at the last meeting, and then proceeded the next morning to look through and study your regulations, and didn't actually find where your regulations.
I didn't find it in there either. Yeah.
But be that as it may, being good practice, and the fact that it was only a few hundred feet of extra land area and we had the space, we just made that change.
Thank you.
So we have increased the replication area to a 2-to-1 ratio. So I think
We would want to set a good example.
I expected so. So we just went and did that. And then the only other thing that we did, and this is actually mostly outside of the buffer zone jurisdiction, but the golf course was concerned about potential for really trying to mitigate passage, trespassing, from the parking area onto their property.
Trespassing and golf
agreed-
ball incursion.
Right, thank you. Golf ball incursion. And so we were proposing we agreed on, and we're proposing a dense shrub area, understory here. We're proposing forsythia. We thought that would be a pretty dense, naturalized, native thing that people don't like to walk through and, would catch, we're gonna catch things pretty dense over time, growing pretty dense.
Does that
Um,
grow in a heavily shaded area?
Well, you're gonna have a pretty good clearing here, by the time you're done
Okay,
with it.
okay.
So, I mean, I'm just like, I thought about that. I mean, think about it in my yard. It grows on the fringes in my yard.
Yeah, that's where I have
Uh,
it as well.
Yeah, I think it'll be fine. And of course, it's just gonna grow in naturally. Anytime you clear you clear some area in a canopy, the fringes are gonna end up getting additional sunlight and all those volunteer,
Mhm.
plants are gonna grow and thicken anyway. So I think over time, you'd effectively, end up with a denser understory on the fringes of this anyway, but we're just sort of gonna plant it to encourage that to happen faster. Um, we've got swales and berms in here anyway, so I really don't
Mhm.
think that people are gonna be wanting to walk that way. Um, but it'll certainly encourage, keep golf balls, from coming over there. I really don't see that as a huge concern, to be quite honest with the golf balls, but I get it. I'm not a professional golfer. I suppose I could probably, knock one pretty far into the woods. It's certainly not a very likely tee shot. I think you might have to be Tiger Woods to hit it from the tee. But someone taking a shot, from the fairway may take a really bad shot, I guess, and get over there. It's not really directly behind the green, and I just don't see it. But be that as it may,
So,
those
Greg,
are the
another
two things we'll
question. Yeah, thank you for addressing those. The other question I had about forsythia, and honestly, I am the client, right? So I can take some of these
Yeah,
actions for ourselves. But
yeah. that-
my experience with the variation of forsythia that I have is that if you don't stay on it every year, it will take over your whole yard. Is that, do you know this Linwood Gold? Is that one that wants to would want to take over the parking area or no?
I really don't see that. And the other
Okay.
thing is, there's an O&M plan on the drainage, and the
Hmm.
swales kind of have to be mowed periodically anyway. So
Hmm.
I don't see that as a concern.
I
Um,
know. I don't want to, with my
but
own house planning, I'm at a stage where I try to minimize the maintenance that I have to take care of. 20
yeah.
years ago, I was like, I can do anything. I've got so much time.
Hey,
Uh,
if you folks would rather see a different species of plant, I am all ears.
maybe we'll ask around. We can ask Rich for some recommendations, and Jenny, I
Yeah,
don't know if you still have contacts, if you'd be willing to ask your contacts for some recommendations.
Yep.
Dense understory, kind of shrubby thing that won't grow,
I mean,
it's not a
if it wasn't invasive, the perfect thing would be like multiflora rose. But
yeah,
I will look
nobody's
at
going through that.
like a
no, but we
spice
don't want to
bush,
plant invasive species, but
No. What were you saying, Jenny?
like a spice bush or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. I don't know that Spice Bush wants to take over anything. But I mean, the really nice thing about the forsythia for certain, like I know nobody's walking through that, right? And it would catch a lot
yeah,
of golf balls if it tries to
that's what
go
we
through
figured.
there. Yeah.
That's what we figured. I mean, I planted the thing in my old house. I planted them actually right around the corner from here, right in front of a ugly concrete retaining wall, and they filled it. After about 2, 3 years, you couldn't even see the retaining. I mean, it was great, real thick, and but I'm whatever in your capacity as the client, yeah, we'll do whatever you want on this one. So
Okay, so one other thing that I wanted to just ask the question of, but it's not an action, Greg. I just want to sample the Conservation Commission. If you would scroll down so we could see kind of the access to the road. So right now, as drawn, this is a single lane access from Northfield Road into the parking area. And one of the concerns that had been expressed by the abutters, which, you know, if it's not a concern for the town, then, you know, and the planning board, then I don't feel like actionable by us. But if like line of sight into that parking area became a concern, could we consider maybe cutting back the overstory a little bit wider on either side to create a broader line of sight? I think because that would be infringing on the wetland, we would then have to do more replication. But Greg, I think you have the real estate to do that if we needed to. Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah. Yep. I mean,
I don't want to
technically,
touch anything we don't have to, right? But this is more like contingency planning.
yeah, I mean, I think it's probably going to be more open than you think, to be quite honest with you.
So in your perspective, and you look at these drawings, you know, in 2D and then, you know, after the fact in 3D, a lot more than I ever do. So you think there would be probably very good line of sight for somebody driving by in a cruiser to see in there?
I mean, it's set off the road, no doubt. I mean, I understand that concern.
Mhm.
But I mean, I think you're going to be able to see in there. I don't,
Okay.
you know, you know, and the other thing you can do is you can do vista, you can always do vista pruning.
So
So
prune
you
up,
could-
right?
you
Yeah.
could prune up some of the lower branches of those larger trees to get some better
Mhm.
visibility through there.
Mhm.
You could prune some of the some of the volunteer understory just to keep it, you know, just to keep it, you know, there's nothing prohibiting that. I guess
Okay.
I'd probably stop short of going any wider, you know, with the actual infrastructure, just because with the type of access it is, I just don't see that it's really warranted.
Okay.
And you're really looking to, from a wetlands protection performance standpoint, you're really looking to minimize the alteration to the permanent alteration to the wetland. So I would
Well, that's
probably,
for certain, right?
yeah, I'd
Yeah.
recommend against, you know, that, but I think there's other ways you can, I think it's going to be more open than you think, but, and also you could mitigate it by doing that vista pruning.
Okay. Okay, vista pruning is the way that we go if we need to address that as a concern.
Yeah, I think so. I
Okay.
mean, you're talking about probably what's going to be left here is 100 feet of woods in the worst case. Like, I think even if you were looking through, you know, in this area here, sorry,
Mhm.
like this, you know, yeah, you're going to be looking through woods, but you're going to be seeing this big, you know, this cleared area. I just think, I think the visibility is going to be better than you think.
I mean, to be honest with you, I do walk there quite a few times in the summer. It's I wish it had
You can
better
see,
access. You can see up in
and you
there.
can see right
Even
into you can see
yeah.
hundreds of feet into the woods. So
Yeah,
I
I
don't think
don't
it's going to be that.
yeah, I haven't really, you know, had to me it seems like it's pretty open, maybe because the canopy there is so dense. But, you know, when we
Yeah,
have concerns by members of the public, right, I do
understood.
want to do what we can
Absolutely.
to address those. And I am very interested in this going forward because it is a wonderful property that the town has invested in. It's taxpayer money, you know, it was only partially funded by a grant. And I feel like the public should have safe access. And right now, I do not feel like they have safe access to this parcel.
Well, yeah, and it's also not on land that you as the Conservation Commission technically control. So,
Hmm.
you know, it's on the opposite side of the street. It's pretty much inadequate. And only, you know, it's really only enough space for one vehicle, maybe two if they park correctly.
Yeah.
And it's on land that's owned by the parks, that's controlled in the care and custody of the Parks Commission. So, and they
Well,
might
and
do something.
yeah, I don't really have an issue with the current parking area, but then to get to the trail, you have to walk back up to Old
Oh, yeah, right.
Stagecoach Road on the
Yeah, right.
conservation parcel. The trees
Yeah.
are so close to the road that you have to walk in the roadway. If you walk on the other side, you're on private property. There are a couple of abutters there that have, you know, dogs that come out to their, come out to their mailbox, which they're entitled to do, right? But if you're,
Yeah.
a mom and a kid and some dogs, like I frequently have found myself on, that you're making some uncomfortable choices there.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a more palatable option for sure. It solves some
Mhm.
logistical issues, safety issues, logistical issues.
Yeah, yeah. And this, I think, would be a wonderful improvement to allow access there. Chris,
Yeah, I heard there were complaints brought up to the board, planning board that weren't brought up to us. I'm just wondering if you were there, Greg, because I imagine those will eventually show up in a future meeting here. So is there anything we haven't heard before that came up in the planning board that complaints on this
No.
project?
So let me pull up, first of all, I was not there. We actually asked for a continuance at the last meeting because we hadn't finished this plan revision yet, and we had just finished it, and I didn't want to give them a plan the day we're going to the meeting, so we had continued your process. We decided we would just continue for 2 weeks, so I wasn't at that meeting. The planning board did actually take testimony anyway, in spite of the fact that we'd asked for the continuance.
Yeah.
Bob Pease was there though, and he summarized it. So let me just see if I can pull that up really quick. He said, he didn't really, transcript of comments. Hold on. Let me see if I can quickly pull this up. I think you all were copied on this as well. Or some of you at least. Oh boy, it's just a transcript.
That's okay.
the only thing that I
know
remembered
there
that was
some
new
concerns. I
was
thought, I didn't think they were new. I didn't think they were really new, that new. I thought they were in the same spirit of, issues with
thought-
access.
I recalled all of them had already been mentioned, except the person maybe across the street had said something about more traffic, because the outlet is right across the street from them. I may be misremembering.
Yeah, I don't think that could be. I honestly, I did not watch that. I will watch it in advance of the planning board meeting because I think it's probably under their purview more. Traffic is not under this commission's purview anyway, but it's certainly not a high traffic generating use.
No, I wouldn't
Yeah.
expect it to be.
So and the road can carry, I mean, the Northfield Road's nowhere near capacity. It's not nowhere near used to the point of being anywhere near its carrying capacity. So I just, I don't see it.
Any more questions, Chris?
No.
Daniel, I'll call on you. You had your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to at least say this. I was at that planning board meeting, and based on a lot of the comments that you are hearing was all very similar, like you're saying, with sight lines and that other traffic thing did come up. They were just more concerned about, how much traffic flow is going to be brought down here. The transcript probably does say it all in there as well, but just figure at least voice that as well so you guys could hear that.
Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, again, we'll address all those with the planning board, but certainly nothing. I didn't see anything related to Conservation Commission other than the fact that other than what they had requested at the last meeting.
And has the planning board asked for any modifications, Greg?
They did not. I essentially asked them to continue it at the opening meeting, as I said, because I wanted to get through. I knew we had plan revisions as part of this process. I wanted to make sure that they were reviewing the plan, and quite frankly, the abutters, the golf course owners had some questions about the stormwater at the opening planning board meeting. I made commitments that you can be certain DEP has reviewed it. They've issued comments. We're revising the plans pursuant to that. And we hadn't done that at the time. So I just asked the planning board to continue it. And all of those things have now been resolved. We do have some lingering concerns roll in on this line of thing, that doesn't sound like people want. This, by the way, is a very welcome to being a developer in Massachusetts. Nobody wants, everybody thinks there's gonna be a big problem with traffic. Everybody thinks there's gonna be, but I don't see it here on this use. But those are the kind of metrics that we have, before, and that's more appropriate to the planning board process, in my opinion.
Okay. Okay. Well, we're only asking because we're the applicant. We want to be.
No,
upfront.
I understand.
Yeah.
You're perfectly in your right to talk it through. I just, in terms of your approval tonight, I don't know that those things really apply.
Okay, fair enough. Do we have any members of the public that want to comment? I don't think that we do. Yeah, I think it's just down to a few brave commissioners and consultant engineers tonight. So I think I'm looking for a motion to approve. If we decide, get recommendations on the vegetation, and decide to go with something other than forsythia there, we can manage that as a plan change.
Probably
Yeah.
probably a field change or
Yeah,
minor modification or something. Yeah, I think that's a
Right.
big deal.
but I think, moving this forward in the process is important. I'm really pleased with the work that you've done for us here, Greg. So thank you very much. And thanks for keeping track so well of the requested changes and getting those implemented promptly. I appreciate
You
it.
bet.
So looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay, so I got Chris's voice first, and Mike, are you a second?
Absolutely. Second.
Okay. Roll call vote. Chris,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Jenny. Jenny, I didn't hear anything.
Good, aye.
Okay. Pete
Aye.
and I for myself. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you. And thanks, Dan. Appreciate the help on that one.
Not a problem.
See you later, everybody.
Thanks, Greg.
All right, moving along. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, as amended in the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands Protection and Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing on a notice of intent by Daniel Sheehan of Haley Ward Construction for the removal of an existing deck within a 50-foot no-build zone and a 30-foot no-touch zone of a bordering vegetated wetland, as well as construction of a two-family dwelling within a 100-foot buffer zone of a bordering vegetated wetland located at 213 Electric Ave. Okay.
Beautiful. Here again, Dan with Haley Ward. Just wanted to I'll share my screen again. Very similar, you guys already saw this stuff, but figure at least outline some of the changes that were made. So as was requested previously, was about putting some sort of planting schedule together, kind of showing the density for 213 here. So really just showing a lot of these plantings within that 30-foot buffer and what made sense to kind of extend outward. Everything else we're proposing just to be grassed or natural vegetation that'll take back over. As for plantings, we did get a little bit more specific, kind of hard to see on these drawings here, but these darker circles are proposing common winterberry, the more of the typical shrub outline for high bush blueberry, excuse me, and more of these trees here, kind of the center here, for silky dogwood. Still left the note on here that the amount and species to be coordinated with you guys as well. I just think at least it shows a density, but it still gives you guys the freedom that if you feel like there should be some more during construction or during the COC, gives you that flexibility, to say the least. And that's really all the changes here for 213 that was really done. Be more than happy to answer any other questions. We'll zoom back out here as well.
Daniel, yeah, zoom back out. So bordering vegetative wetland, is that the wetland immediately adjacent to the deck?
Yeah, so this would be that, I guess, a debatable one, because we're just talking about 221, that looked like there was some
Right.
flow here. So that would be that neck of the woods. But yeah, that's where that 30-foot no touch zone and 50-foot is all based off of these wetland flags here. From my understanding, which was a bordering vegetated wetland.
Well, and that's my observation too. I mean,
Okay.
the seasonal flow there, yeah, it wasn't a question in my mind. Farther
Okay.
down in the ravine where the 200 and 100 series are, that's where I had the big question.
Okay.
But you know, again, when we start talking about what are protected riverfront areas versus not, I think the definition in the WPA is stream, you know, is defined as a stream or even an intermittent stream if it connects, hydrologically connects an upstream vegetated wetland and a downstream wetland, which this seems to sort of kind of indicate again. If you look at flag 103, how far away is your house from there? In this case, we can't really go, I don't think, by your buffer zone lines because they're coming off of the closer bordering vegetated wetland.
Yeah, that is a great question. I'm actually pulling up the drawing here on a separate screen as well, just to kind of get a bit more accurate.
Oh, this is a PDF. Okay, got it.
Yep. But based
I'm so
on
used to Greg showing them in CAD where he can just go and just pop a line there and go, oh yeah, that's
exactly
213 and a half feet.
based on what I rough calced out there, it's probably close to about 200. I'm pulling up CAD here on the other side, and I'll get you a
Okay.
more accurate reading. But AutoCAD can be slow. Okay, so from 103, the far building corner is actually 166.44 feet.
Okay. And that's to me that's material because that says that even if 103, you know, 102 kind of area was designated riverfront, you would be outside of the
Primary zone.
yeah, out of the inner riparian zone. So you wouldn't have the high threshold of performance standards to meet there. Okay. All right, and so yeah, I think in this case we are looking for Sophia. You had written it kind of succinctly, and Daniel, she said it for also for 221, but when I summarized, I didn't include it in the summary. Just for your edification, I think it also applies here. Sophia, you had said we had been looking for clear designation on the limit of work, and then also a map of, or at least some delineation on where the erosion controls were going to be placed.
Yep, I'm actually going to pull up the second screen here. Let's go into that as well. So based on what I recall too, there was also a question about a sequence. We did add that here. It was actually just part of the original plan. I just forgot that it was actually on the sheet. Just a general construction sequence on how things would go about. And then as for limit of disturbance, you are correct, I believe. We still just showed just that silt fence, and it looks like that notation didn't get updated. So I will update that to also say limit of work as well, just for that clear distinction between the two.
Okay. And I think also applies to Sophie. Yes, please.
Yeah, I think we got the main points. Can you oh, okay. Again, it is updated. The erosion control around the decking area. I think I
Yes.
see it from here. Okay.
Yep.
And then the last thing was need to provide a vegetation narrative, which I think you also went over.
Yeah, I did provide a very brief narrative, kind of similar, just kind of still giving the liberties to the Conservation Commission on the species and the quantities that you'd like to see there, but did provide at least that, what's the word before here, at least density to kind of give a good show for the contractor. And just for clarity too, Each one was kind of measured about 5 feet from center to center. I'm trying to at least have some dense spacing between the 30-foot no disturb, so it kind of prevents any more additional disturbance, if you will.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Sophie. Do we have questions or comments from members of the commission? And so I think the O&M plan for 213 exists because there was one uploaded into the other one called 213.
Correct.
Sophie, can you confirm that it's been uploaded to this OpenGov instance?
Yeah, I'm just gonna triple check right now on OpenGov.
Thanks.
Make sure it's not labeled 221.
No, I think they're all labeled 213 because as part of the stormwater permit, we just kind of called the whole site 213, which is kind of why they ended up with that designation.
That
But-
makes so much sense.
Yes, you
And-
see December 11th, date 2024, 213 Electric Ave operation and maintenance plan.
And Daniel, you've addressed all of DEP's comments?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, I think I'm looking for a motion on this. Whatever conditions commissioners want to apply.
I have a question. I
Yeah.
know there's been a lot tied between these two parcels. So if one's continued, the other one doesn't automatically get continued. These can be voted separately because they seem to be intertwined.
Yeah, they can be voted separately. And so, for example, if 221 comes back as, riverfront and, they want to, I don't know, re-subdivide or something, it kind of starts the whole process over again. They would have to reapply for this one too if they were changing the plans.
Okay.
So I mean, it's really up to the, applicant and how confident they are that there's not any interdependencies, but the burden is, and also corrective action burden is also on them.
Thank you.
It's a good question though, because a lot of these things are complicated and interrelated.
Well, with that information, I would vote to approve.
You would motion to approve
Motion to approve, yes.
with a standard order of conditions?
Yes.
Thank you, Chris.
I second that.
Okay, Mike. Thank you. Okay, roll call vote. Chris,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Jenny,
Aye.
Pete,
Aye.
and I for myself. Thank you, Daniel.
Great. Thank you guys very much. Have a good rest of the night.
Thanks. Mike, what happened? It got dark behind you.
Well, the sun does set where I live.
I can't believe that.
It's still
Okay.
beautiful.
It still looks beautiful.
When you first came on, I thought that was one of those backgrounds you pick. I'm really jealous.
All right, moving along. Sophia, any updates on hearings, violations, enforcement actions at all?
I do have one for 10 Mass Ave. There was a document uploaded into SharePoint. Just trying to locate it. 319. 10 Mass Ave project status update. Do you want me to share it or?
Yeah, that'd be
It's
great.
quite, extensive.
Oh, this is progress. This is great news. Oh, this one's been lingering for so long. Okay, so it looks like, scroll down just a little bit. It looks like, Dillerson Roy is anticipating a filing, by the end of, April. That's good news. Thank you for that, Sophie.
Yep. There's also the report attached to that.
Is there a site plan to it or just a narrative?
There is somewhat of a plan. It's very
Mhm.
minimal.
Okay,
Yeah, that's the only plan they really have there.
okay. Okay, it's progress.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. Any other updates?
Not within that section, no.
Okay, so with regard to 1168, Mass Ave rear, when Maddie was still here, she moved over some, satellite images that I had captured. I think, it would be in everybody's best interest if you were to share at least some of the older ones with Brian Marchetti, who's their consultant. Let me see. So the hang on, I have it written down. The way I did the date coding on those is usually I start out with the year and then the month and then the day, so that yeah, they're in kind of descending order. So area A and area B, and then the date stamp of 2021 04 03 for both area A and area B. If you could share those with Brian Marchetti, just to make certain he has visibility to what the commission has visibility to from a historical perspective, I think that would be useful. And for members of the commission too, we went through and captured historical satellite images in those areas where there's a question about the amount of work that's happened. And they do have those date stamps on them. Sophie, where would they find those files? In
They're
the
in
SharePoint?
SharePoint, but I'm not certain. I think maybe Maddie sent you a link that directly links to it somewhere in your email. So I would have that too. But navigating my own mailbox and Maddie's mailbox is
They
not
do have
super
the
user-friendly.
address in the file name. So if you look for files, search on files to start with 1168, they ought to pop up. And I think I have those captured all the way back to like 2020. And it seems like Nearbat had a couple of snapshots for us every year, some with vegetation and some with, without vegetation, from winter months.
I did locate the file. So it's under documents, violations, and then 1168 Mass Ave rear. And
Okay.
they're all uploaded there. The date modified is February 20th. And you can see Maddie's name next to it.
Okay. Thank you for that. I don't think you need to send them all of the files. They're kind of big, but just if you send them, the two from 2021, I think that's good enough for their reference. I mean, they certainly have the wherewithal, if their consultant is aware there's a, more representative history back there, they can go and get more information if that's what they think is in their client's interest to do. Okay, moving along, new business. So in the peer review process, right, that we engaged tonight, I actually think that we need to consider doing that more often. And I've talked to Chris Riley about that, and he definitely is advocating it. Our bylaw, I would point out, has some language that provides for us to use peer review whenever we want to. And I think anytime we have a question about the delineation, right? And I think you guys can see this. So here's what our bylaw provides right now. So there's no reason why we can't ask for peer review at any point that we want. So anytime we have a question about a delineation, or a concern, or there's a lot of, back and forth between, Sophia as our expert and the applicants, we can ask for peer review, which is of course at the applicant's cost burden. So I wanted to point out to the commission that we have this available, and that right now I feel like an underutilized resource. And there are other boards in town that use this more often and more consistently. So I think we should consider it. Any questions or comments around that? Okay, take it under advisement. The bylaws have a link directly on the Conservation Commission page. So you can go and, look at this to the extent of your pleasure. Jenny?
I was gonna say that I agree. I think this is a great idea. That I know it's obviously something we already do, but I definitely agree that it's something that we should utilize more.
We've been reluctant to, I think, impose this kind of cost burden on the applicants. But, at the end of the day, the consultants that are representing the applicants are representing the applicants and not the wetlands, and not, the shared interest of the townspeople to protect the wetlands. And that's our charter, right? So
Right.
I think it makes a lot of sense for us to have a disinterested third party that's working on behalf of the town. The other thing that Chris had kind of pointed out too is that we could, as a commission, and I don't even know that we need to, other than a pro forma vote, say that we want to set this as a direction. We could make some kind of estimate based on, what our run rates have been for example, NOIs in the past year, and make an estimate, right? And actually quote this, ask for quotes. Sophia is a horizontal engineering type of request for bid, so that anytime this comes up, you don't have to go out and ask for 3 quotes. It's whoever our appointed horizontal engineer is that won that bid, then they estimate how many hours it's going to take for them to do it, and that will set the fee that the applicant has to pay. And that would be a much more efficient and streamlined way of doing it. I feel like then each time we ask for this, you have to go out and, write a new scope of work and, manage bids coming in from different engineering firms. And then, of course, different engineering firms might get the bid, and then you have to work with somebody else who may not have a consistent opinion as the last guy. I feel like a horizontal engineering, business award may be most efficient to do and most beneficial for you as well. Anyway, think about that, and feel free to talk to me or Jenny or Chris about that as well.
Yeah, I would definitely like to go over that again when we aren't during having the meeting as well,
Mm-hmm.
and take proper notes as well.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, if there are no more comments on that topic, we'll move along to the next topics. Question, Sophie.
Yeah, I was talking with Brianna from DEP trying to iron out the Conservation Commission training
Mhm.
that we discussed at the last meeting. And she would like the commission to rehash the start time on April 30th to an earlier time.
How earlier? Because I think we
Um,
had talked about 7 before.
I think she was leaning towards 5 or 5:30 or 6.
So if we all, got together and decided 6, would we go back to her and would she say not early enough, or would that be okay? Or do you know?
I don't know. I think earlier than 7, being 6 o'clock should be okay. But I cannot say for certain. She also
Jenny?
has to go and talk to someone else to confirm that that schedule works as well. So it's a kind of a hierarchy on DEP side too, that she has to go through that chain.
Jenny?
So, before we come up with a time, could you ask Brianna what the latest they'd be able to start would be, just so that we know what limit we're up against before we come up with a time and then go back and realize it's too late?
I think that makes a lot
Yeah.
of sense.
I can try to iron that out.
Okay.
She did say, I'm looking at her email. Please ask commission if the training can be done. Start at 5 p.m.
Oh, so she explicitly asked for a 5 p.m. start?
Yes.
Okay. So we would just be looking for a time that we would all be available for 5 p.m. then.
Sounds like it. Chris?
Yeah, with sufficient notice, I can do 5 PM. I just need a heads up, so I can do that.
Okay, thank you. Mike, what about you?
Yeah, as like with Chris, if I had some notice, I think I certainly block out a 5 o'clock.
We are still talking about April 30th, right, Sophie?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Pete?
It's kind of difficult. I mean, but I'll do it. I mean, I don't work for someone else, so I have flexibility, but I have to
Plan. Yeah, I know it's a struggle for me too, particularly in the middle of the week. Everybody's getting hot and bothered and going good, and they all want to meet until like I'm missing a meeting at that started at 8 tonight to enjoy being with you fine folks here tonight. But yeah, with notice I can do 5. So I appreciate any flexibility that you can take on there, Pete. And I will double check with Jeff and also Rich as well. Actually, Sophie, why don't you double check with them? Then if you do it, it's agnostic to any open meeting law kind of concerns, although scheduling is usually exempt from that. Ask them if they can be available for the training at 5 p.m. because that's what DEP can support. Okay,
Okay.
cool. And then topics, you and Jenny are still working on circulating a poll for topics, or did Bree have specific recommendations around that?
I didn't receive anything from Jenny. We didn't coordinate anything, but
Yeah, I think she's been kind of slammed.
I've been
Um,
extremely, I actually missed PT yesterday because I got
Woo!
stuck in a meeting and I forgot about it until like 2 hours later.
Uh-oh.
I'm just a mess. But I think we talked about in the last meeting that you can just do the poll very easily in Outlook.
I know how to do a scheduling poll.
So if you're, well, I can talk about it with you offline, but it's super easy. If you even just search poll in the top, it'll show you the different, you can just do a poll and you create your questions and
Cool.
then you get your answers.
Okay.
Okay, I assume nothing else on that. Sounds like that came to a logical conclusion. Earth Day. I love Earth Day. I am also slammed and have not been able to do anything except we have the pollinator habitat signed up for the 14th, Mike, which we would like to socialize and get some good get them some more volunteers. And then we also have the National Honor Society signed up to do help with creating some boardwalks in the Cowdrey nature area, which is something that's been on the the kind of the trail stewardship wish list for a while. So that is the next thing, and that's huge because I think Bob was telling me there were approximately 80 feet of boardwalk that needs to be created in this section of trail in the Cowdrey area. And so just getting the materials, the, half to 3/4 of a mile out and down the trail is a little bit of a challenge. The National Honor Society has approximately 45 kids in it this year that's comprised of juniors and seniors. Now, anytime they field one of these events, they never have 100% of the kids show up. But they, generally, my experience is they usually have about, more than half of their kids show up. So having, 20 to 30 kids show up to move a bunch of lumber down the trail is huge. So that would be awesome as well. Chris and Jenny, you guys said that you guys were willing to help out. Maybe one of you guys could take an action to get us together to kind of chat about what else needs to happen here. That would be great.
I can do that.
Oh, that'd be awesome, Chris. Thank you. And Mike, I see you've been kind of quietly socializing this, and the library, you had reached out to them and they said that they didn't actually have anything that they felt like needed to be supported this year.
I'm not sure if they're going to skip this year or whether or not, at least that was from my last emails through Linda Hilson through the Pollinator Habitat. And I think I've been sending you copies as I receiving them. So I might connect with Robin Venezia one more time as we get closer. And I'm only here in Paradise for 7 more days, so I will be closer to home and feel like I can perhaps do a little more legwork in Lunenburg on our behalf.
Sure. Okay, very good. Anything else on that?
I know we're still, the sign that we said was going to get repaired for the pollinator habitat, I think it's going to get done hopefully prior to the 14th. That's all I know. And also there's going to be a list coming out of perhaps some seeds and or plants that the pollinator habitat are going to submit for us to approve. It'll be a nominal like they have done in the past. So that's coming for the pollinator habitat for this season.
Very good. Lots to look forward to in the spring.
Yes.
Nice. Okay, moving along. Encroachment issues, we're still tracking those. 950 Chase Road is in executive session, so we don't talk about it in open meeting. And it's been reverted back to the select board anyway. Yeah, I don't have any updates on, well, open space. We've had one change. Chris has kind of taken over, and I've pulled back from the open space committee. So thank you, Chris, for that. And you saw that I sent Mike your contact information and whatnot.
Yep.
Hollis Road, the lease agreement piece of it, that is still tracking, Mike. So I've talked to Michael Ray. He actually has been doing a lot of stuff in the background, talking to Adam, talking to Chris Ruth for some, kind of inspection stuff, right? So even though he's been delaying, he's actually moving the ball forward on the field a bit.
Yes, I heard they're trying to get a meeting going to make a site visit, and that's the next step to occur. We were hoping that was going to happen the first of this month. However, there have been some delays in getting that together, but hopefully that'll happen very shortly. And so I see light at the end of the tunnel on that as well.
Yeah. Progress is progress. We'll take it.
Right.
Are there any other updates on Hollis Road?
I asked Chris today about any cabinets that have been made available through Nick or the and he said he was hoping to get word from him today. This was later this afternoon, so I'm not sure. He would have called, or maybe I'll get a call tomorrow, whether or not something has been secure. But as far as yet, nothing.
Okay.
All right.
Very good. Any updates on committee reports? And any other comments from members of the commission? Okay, the time now is 8:54, and I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Mike.
Second,
Thank you, Jenny. Roll call vote. Chris,
Aye.
Pete,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Jenny,
aye,
and I for myself. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank
Right.
you.
you too.